in touch with you and you were able to join us
I
on
am
the
so
set. We're
delighted
lucky
to
to
be here
catch
today.
you. You're just coming through town now and everything.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm here from Vermont and
Yeah.
delighted to be back on Broadway.
Broadway. That's where you
This is-
began.
this is
I'm
my home.
Back
I'm
on
coming
Broadway.
from modern Rome.
Oh.
From where?
Modern Rome.
Yeah, Rome on the Potomac.
Oh,
yeah.
that's right. Yeah, he's from, well, we're from both different directions.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Right.
I'm from Vermont, you're from Washington.
That's
I'm
right.
from Michigan originally, but I'm a New Yorker now. And welcome very, very much to Conversation. A pleasure to welcome to the program two gentlemen that I'm really very pleased to welcome to the set. I'd like to introduce them, and we'll get into a conversation. On my far left is a dear friend of mine, Norman Kurland, who I first met in the year 1973, way, way back, the year that, the day that Mr. Nixon was inaugurated in his second term. And he's got a T-shirt that is obviously able to be seen called Own or Be Owned, which might give you a clue that he's somewhat aware of the gentleman Louis Kelso, the economist of binary economics. He's visiting us from Washington, and Norman, it's so good to see you, and we really had a great time, and it's really good. We're glad we can get this program in. And on my immediate left, I'm going to say it. You said I shouldn't say it, but I'm going to say it. I don't care. It's Garry Davis, and he's world citizen, and I'm going to say #1. You said I shouldn't say #1, but you were the first person to break the barrier, and by gosh, I think you ought to get credit for that. He is the world citizen, I'll say world citizen. He creates the world passport that people can subscribe to. He's a person coming out of show business, and he's got a new film coming up about him. He's a real first-class, world-class citizen, and welcome, Garry. I'm really glad we were able to include you in the program today. Really good to see you.
I think the first world citizen was probably the first guy who came out of a cave and said, you know, ugh, this is my world.
You said ugh? Do we know?
They didn't speak at that time. But
Yeah,
I'm sure he thought this is my world.
Yeah, ugh. More like ugh. Yeah. And I want to make a sort of obiter dictum or a little thing on the side, and I'll say it now and get it out of the way and everything. But ladies and gentlemen, this is May 10th of the year 2006, and mark my words well, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very special moment in the evolution of universal zeitgeist. This is a major day. We're moving into what I would call the synergetic era as of today, having come out of the paleo-synergetic era, which has been 36 years in length. And I just want to make that point. Won't try and explain it or anything, just make the point here, for the record, as they say. And it is the case, but not at all connected, that it happens to be my son's birthday today. And I'd like to give him a happy birthday wish out in Berkeley.
Oh, happy birthday.
And so forth. And all of that now over. Welcome both of you very much to the program. Wonder if you could, in a thumbnail way, your background a little bit, Norman, okay? And then we'll get to Garry. And then we want to talk, and we have a little clip of Louis Kelso we could bring into this. He's passed, but we'll talk about him. But talk a little bit about yourself and your involvement. I know we're all involved with Buckminster Fuller, and we're all involved with Louis Kelso, among others, but maybe you could share a little of your background.
Well, a little of background. After finishing my undergraduate work at UConn, I went into the service during the Korean War as a direct commissioned officer and spent 5 years in the military, ending up in a Strategic Air Command B-47 bomber unit in Lincoln Air Force Base. Had a couple commands in Japan, but I never intended to make the military career. I was interested in trying to figure out what do I do with my life. So someone said, "Why don't you go into the law? Because you can go into many fields." So
True.
I happened to have gotten lucky. I was on the GI Bill and got a full tuition scholarship at the University of Chicago Law School.
Good.
And went there from 1957 to the beginning of 1960. Left there to come to modern Rome, Washington, D.C., interested in figuring out ways to solve big problems of the world. Basically, how people can deal with poverty and powerlessness. I was very interested in that.
You passed the bar in the D.C.?
I was a lawyer, a member of the
DC?
bar.
First time out, did you pass it?
As a matter of fact, Harold, the first time, I'm trying to remember, I think I flunked it the first time.
John Kennedy.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I did. As
Yeah.
a matter of fact, I did because I failed to take a bar exam, And if you're going to pass the bar, you better take a bar exam, no matter what's.
You mean take a bar exam? We have to
take a bar review course.
Review course. You have to do like
because
an SAT,
because that's just the way it is.
Yeah.
And so the next time I did, and I had no trouble, and spent 5 years in government legal service, first in welfare and education law. And that was very exciting because we're dealing with segregation issues, which were issues that I
want to just throw it in, Norman, if I don't mind, that you were early on down in Mississippi.
Oh yeah, that was later.
Carmichael,
That was later.
Great good friend.
That was later. That was later.
But you were involved. Ennis Francis.
Yes,
was up
in
here
Harlem.
in New York?
Right,
yeah.
right, exactly. She's
Yeah.
one of the great. She was probably the finest grassroots political leader that I've ever come across, and we worked with her. And you interviewed her.
I did. Yes, she was great.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, after 2
yeah.
years, I was a maverick in government. So
You've
I
always
was
been a maverick.
I was pushing things like the guaranteed annual income or the
Theobald.
negative income tax, knowing that you have to solve the problem of poverty. Spent 2 years and then went to civil rights. I went into the U.S. Commission of Civil Rights. And our project, I was in the general counsel's office, but we had a project in Mississippi to write up a report, which has been suppressed from the public. But we wrote up a report. So I got very involved in 62, 63, 64
Down there.
in Mississippi.
You were in Mississippi?
Yeah. Oh, yes. I was.
Marching?
I was working, well, let's say, I was working with Medgar Evers and Bob Moses and the leaders of SNCC down there. Stokely was down there. We developed what's called a federal presence theory. So I was a federal presence.
You were the federal presence in Mississippi?
In other words, you
at
went...
the time of Mr.
Kennedy in other words,
passing the Civil Rights Bill?
This is before the Civil Rights.
Same year Wallace stood at the
This is before the Civil Rights Bill was passed after Kennedy's assassination.
That's true, but
see,
it was blown in the wind.
It was
a dangerous place to be.
Let me say about that, Harold. When I was in law school, they said it was impossible to get over the white supremacy system down there, which denied people the right to vote and many other things. The Supreme Court was not going to touch one person, one vote. They said that's what I learned in law school.
Did you know Lucy Commissar down there?
Yeah.
Lucy was down there in '62.
Yeah, she was working with.
And it was dangerous to go down.
Oh
there.
yeah. I mean, people.
Real deep
no
hatred.
question, no question. But anyway, the important thing is to know is that when you have the right goal, and you go to the place where people are most uncomfortable, you bring the attention of the world on that, and suddenly a few people lost their lives, some bloodshed, but by and large it was a major revolutionary advance, and the system, access to the political system was opened up. Now, it wasn't enough.
Of course.
So at
We've
that
still
time,
got a couple of problems.
right? And I had difficulty as a maverick even within the Civil Rights Commission because I was close to SNCC. And the Kennedy administration at that time were afraid of SNCC. They were dealing with the Southern politicians. And so I had to move over to the war on poverty. Kennedy was assassinated. Johnson was able to enact the war on poverty. And I read the Economic Opportunity Act, and I said, this is it. Now, the major thrust, this is a way you can restructure the whole welfare system, okay? And move
or the whole economic system,
and move toward
a new paradigm.
And move toward you had money to organize community by community a new constituency in order to have a constituency toward the guaranteed annual income, the negative income tax.
Was that Theobald, Robert Theobald?
Well, that was, Theobald was the guaranteed annual income, but then the negative income tax was Milton Friedman.
It was Milton Friedman.
Yeah, because remember, out of Chicago, I studied.
Did you study with him or
I studied under his brother-in-law, Aaron Director. So this was where I really got a deep grounding in neoclassical economic theory.
Do you
but it
remember-
never solved the problem.
I've noticed. There's still a couple of problems remaining.
Right. So
But
anyway,
I do remember Mr. Nixon in 1972 saying we're all Keynesians.
Yeah, all
now.
Keynesians,
Do you think
right.
it'd be fair to say that if we were trying to find some of the Schumpeter and all this, would it be fair to say that we're all Friedmanites now? Or are we all anything in terms of economic theory that informs the political process for operating spaceship Earth?
well, let me tell you, I think both parties are probably similar in one thing, that they think you can solve all the problems of the economy through wage slavery. In other words, full employment.
Well, we've been wage slaves for 200,000 years.
The only problem with full employment policies is that many people get their jobs in an artificial way. War is one way of the last time we had really intense full employment was in the Second World War, where Garry served. You had 13 million of the most able-bodied people out of the workforce after the Depression, and yet you moved to the fastest rates of growth. You had no unemployment. People
Rosie
who were
the Riveter.
that's
the women
right, and
went
people
into
were
the
trained
factories,
on the jobs. They didn't need to learn training in some school, job training. No, they got on the jobs. My grandfather was a blacksmith. He was illiterate, and he was able to go in to build Corsair aircraft. Remember the Navy aircraft?
My grandfather was a union organizer.
Good for him.
In Detroit.
Okay, so let's go a little bit more, Garry. And then what happened, I wrote the guidelines in the war on the Community Action Program for maximum feasible participation of the poor. In other words, as a result of my Mississippi experience, I knew how important it was to break the barriers to participation.
Economic participation. We live in an economic plutocracy and always have.
Right. So then I went to the West Coast to put together some of the most radical community action programs. Got more money to organizations at the grassroots than to the establishment. And yet I could see in the war on poverty that it was doomed to failure. This was a time Reagan was governor, and you had the riots
in California.
That's right. And you had the riots at Berkeley, and I could see that it was only
you had a war going in Vietnam.
And you had the war on Vietnam, exactly.
Which took an awful lot of money away from maybe the war on poverty could have solved some of those
incidentally,
problems.
I resigned my commission because of the war on Vietnam. Of course, I would never fight in a war that I considered stupid and unjust. Okay? But then what happened was
And you met Lewis.
I'm leading to that.
Because we got to get a bridge over to Garry.
Yeah, I know.
Because Garry is not just a pretty face.
No, Garry,
we have to give Garry a chance to say a word or two.
You're right.
You know, we've been talking and everything. Garry
has the biggest. Well, let
because
me say,
Louis
Gary's
Kelso
idea,
and you will be able to get him to where Garry can be brought into the picture, right?
Exactly.
When did you two meet?
Okay, we met.
When did you two meet?
We met.
Can you remember?
Yeah, it was in the It was in 70. I think around 70. Garry, 69, 70, something like that. I think it was a 70.
You almost got up to that in your running biography.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, why don't you tell us a little about yourself, and then we can blend the two synergistically in a in a thing. Because if you let him go, he'll talk for 3 hours,
There
and I'm
you
here
go.
to listen, and it'll all be good. That's the hell of it.
You gotta
It's all, well, I know, but it'll all be good. That's the hell of it. Now, bring us a little bit of your background, young man. Now, come on. Now.
You know, I have 2 hours.
All right.
You're going to get back.
All right. Drum roll. You're on.
I want to talk about the Davis Code.
Okay, good. Tell us about the Davis
under
Code.
a code. And it started back in 1921 in a little room in Bar Harbor. There were 3 people in that room.
Yeah, right.
My mother, my father, and a doctor.
Okay? And another in waiting.
My mother was giving birth. The father and the doctor were telling bawdy stories, and everybody was laughing. And Mother was protesting. Because,
I would have thought.
She said, I'm giving birth, you guys. Will you stop it? But she was laughing at the same time. And there was a big joke, and out I came.
Came out laughing, huh? Came out into a laughing world.
I came out laughing because, I mean, that was the first sound I heard in this life.
That's not bad.
That started the Davis Code.
The Davis Code.
The Davis Code is laughter.
Enlighten us. Yeah, okay.
And not laughter at, but laughter with.
Yes, it's a big
that's
difference.
very important.
Yeah.
Important difference.
Yeah.
So I figured this is a good world. Everybody's laughing because I'm there.
Yeah.
So I
Happy to
figured
see
that's,
me.
that's what I should be doing.
Welcome aboard Spaceship Earth.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and that's what I should be doing. It's a happy world. So from then on, I said my mission is to make people laugh.
Okay. That's
I mean, if somebody asked me what my nationality is, I would say show business.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah, that is international.
And that makes me a global citizen already.
Yeah, I know.
Because, I mean, laughter is everywhere. Everybody wants to laugh. You come into a theater, that's all you want. You want to be entertained, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I sometimes think current politics is something like theater of the absurd.
Oh, it's all, yeah, right.
Maybe theater of cruelty.
It's show business.
Are told, yeah.
Anyway, that started me off in show business. And my father.
Was your family show business?
My father was a band leader, Meyer Davis, and
That's
so
right,
forth.
famous band leader.
Yeah,
Not
famous
just
band
a
leader.
band
I mean,
leader.
we
He was
were.
and he's the one who was telling jokes.
Mother played the piano.
And he was the one telling jokes when you arrived.
He was one telling jokes. Yeah, he always
The
had
dirty jokes.
No, body, not really.
Body, I'm
Body.
sorry. He always had jokes from New York. He'd come home on the weekends. We say, "What's the latest joke in New York?" And he'd pull out a whole list of things and then tell us the jokes. So you can imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, here's my own father talking about laughter all the time.
Right.
So what an influence I had. Anyway, I got into this show. You know, I don't want to tell the whole story, but
no, you can't, yeah.
I was in a show, I had to study how to laugh.
You've become
I had
an
to
adult.
study how to make people laugh.
Yeah.
It's not easy sometimes.
I bet it's
I mean,
not.
sometimes people don't want to laugh.
They say humor comes off
They're
a great
depressed,
deal of,
they have
angst.
their this and that, so forth. Anyway, so I went to Carnegie Tech, the dramatic school.
Okay.
And, but you don't do any laughter in Carnegie Tech, at least the freshmen don't.
What's it all?
All we're doing is
method
building sets for the seniors.
Oh, I see.
You
right.
know what I mean?
Like pledging a fraternity.
I was so good at building sets.
Yeah.
I was hired by one of the seniors who became the stage manager at the Bucks County Playhouse.
Oh, down in Pennsylvania.
Bucks County, Pennsylvania,
beautiful,
Theron Bamberger, and I was there. This was show business for me.
Sure.
And I said, gee, this is the place to be.
How old you are now?
Because I'm 84.
No, not now, then.
I was 20. I was 20.
Oh, you're in your prime. Yeah,
Yeah,
okay,
I was 20.
Yeah.
And
So like
here I was
Rooney
saying,
and
hey,
Judy.
these guys are getting laughs from an audience.
Yeah, right.
You see?
Right.
So this is where I want to be. So after the season was over there, I told my father, I said, look, I don't want to go back to college. This is ridiculous. I can build sets, but that's all I want. I don't want to build sets. I want to be on Broadway. He says, you got 21 days to get a job on Broadway.
To get a job on Broadway.
Yeah. So I went to all the chorus calls. I could do a time step.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I
You
can
do
a
it now?
time
You want
step.
to do
I
it
can
now?
a time
Yeah,
step.
be careful. No, never mind.
Not
Let it go. Let it go. Not on the Broadway. This is
And so I don't know why, but
Yeah.
they were doing an army show, and I guess I looked like a soldier or something.
Yeah.
I don't look gay. Half the guys,
Yeah, I know they're
95%
gay,
are gay.
yeah.
Anyway, I got a job in, let's face it, the biggest show on Broadway.
Really? Doing what?
I was just a chorus boy. I was what they call a gypsy. You know, in the chorus. But I was in show business.
Yeah, we're on Broadway.
I'm on Broadway.
Where Danny Kaye was the star.
Danny Kaye was the star.
Nice guy?
Gradually, let's not go into that.
Okay.
Gradually, I became his understudy.
Okay.
And
That's maybe why you don't want to go
I'm
into
waiting
it.
for him to get sick. And
Yeah.
The show was a smash hit.
Yeah.
Every night sold out.
Right.
Imperial Theater, Broadway.
And what are you doing? You're in the chorus
And I'm
while
in the-
he's doing the star
I'm in the
role.
chorus, but
you knew his lines.
They
and
let me understudy him.
Uh-huh.
Every week there's an understudy rehearsal.
Okay.
Saturday. So somebody had to fill in for Danny for the other understudies.
I see.
That's
Okay.
why they gave it to me.
Right. Okay.
Because
Good
they
training.
said, look, if Danny's sick, it's forget it. The curtain's coming down.
Yeah.
No, nobody can.
Because he was the show.
He was the show.
Yeah.
He's done his specialty number was the famous melody in 4F, the
Yeah.
double talk number, etc. I knew I could do it.
Yeah. You're just waiting for him to get sick. Just get out of the way
He
and
was
let
an
me.
Iron Man,
Yeah.
this guy.
Yeah, I know.
18 months.
I know. Oh.
And then the war comes along.
That's
You
the
know,
second war,
1941,
folks. That's the
Second World War.
Yeah.
And it's a draft. you
Yeah,
know. People got
yeah,
drafted in
yeah.
that war.
Yeah.
So I knew I was going in. And here I said, well, if I have to go in and fight a war, they're going to teach me to fly.
Yeah, they sure will.
I always wanted to learn how to fly, so the government's going to finance my flying. Anyway, 18 months later, 2 weeks minus 18 months, Danny Kaye gets sick. He's got a sore throat. We're doing 4 shows over the weekend. Saturday matinee, bad show. He can hardly talk. Saturday night, he's got a doctor in his dressing room. Two shows to come. Sunday.
Sunday.
And the famous words, you know, I'm taking my makeup off down in the basement where we dressed, and the stage manager comes down and says,
"You're going to have to fill in for Danny, boy."
The famous words are, "You're on."
Oh boy! Oh boy! Oh boy! Now, what went through your head when that happened?
I got to wash my hair.
Were you? Oh yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. That's a good practical way to approach it. But was it hallelujah, or was it hallelujah?
I got to wash my hair.
Serious? Was it like hallelujah, or was it good grief?
No, because I knew Danny's role, forward, backward, upside down.
You were confident.
He never changed. I was super confident.
Oh, super.
Not only that, but I had been doing Melody in 4F in Philadelphia for a year because my mother was the chairperson of the Stage Door Canteen in the Academy of Music in Philly, and she would put on a big show for the soldiers.
Right.
So Saturday night, I would take a train and I'd come down, and she knew when I was going to hit the top of the stairs of the Academy of Music, and she would go into Danny Kaye's overture of Melody in 4F.
And then you'd come down the
and
stairs?
I'd come down the stairs
theatrically?
and I'd do Melody in 4F with the guys and kill them
Uh-huh.
and so forth. And nobody in New York knew I was doing it.
Right.
Because it didn't belong to the show.
Right,
It belonged to
right.
Danny Kaye.
Right.
So nobody could do it.
Okay.
Legally, nobody could do it.
But you were doing it.
Well,
Illegally?
I coaxed them into it. I
Okay,
said,
all
look,
right.
I said, there's no finale.
Uh-huh.
Melody in 4F is the finale, and I can do it. The producer wanted to see that, so they brought me in at 12 o'clock, and there was the piano and the drum and the...
But bring us back to New York the night when you
York.
said you're on. Bring us back to that golden moment, young man.
Well, what do you mean I'm on? I'm still on. Look at me.
Yeah, I know you've been on ever since.
television.
You've been on ever since. As far as I've known, you've always been on.
Let's go. Okay, that's a brief history of what the
Well,
day.
what happened? You had to perform in New York.
I
Don't let that
performed in
go.
New York. I did the show. Everybody was calm. Everybody liked it. You know, the audience liked it.
What are you talking about here? You got 13 curtain calls.
Curtain calls.
I was just,
You were a smash.
I was just coming to that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Danny used to get 3 calls, and I wanted to get those 3
Oh, I'm sorry. I
calls.
stepped on your
So
line.
I did the melody. How that the flame say give you sound the bellman, etc. I won't go through it. But anyway, it was a double talk number. I got the 3 calls, but the audience was so pleased that they had a show. And we're giving a show, and the 3rd call, Danny used to do a little thing of, I'll let the flames say, the curtains coming down, and he'd go off.
Yeah.
You see? And the audience thought I was ad-libbing now.
Oh, I see.
And the audience started, it started building.
I hear it was a crescendo.
In, out, in, out, in, out. I got 13 curtain calls.
Wow, congratulations,
Thank you very
young
much.
man. Your career was made.
It was made. 2 weeks later, I'm in the Army.
Oh, dear me. Dear me. Oh.
The only guy who remembered me was Ray Bolger. When I got out of the
you
Army.
knew Ray Bolger. Oh, he was another wonder.
I was in the show 3 to Make Ready, but the Army changed me. You see, they put me, I knew how to fly. They taught me how to fly, but then they put me in a B-17.
Yeah, Flying Fortress.
Flying Fortress, and said, okay, now go out and bomb Dusseldorf.
Oh, boy.
And so I went out there, fat, dumb, and happy, 5 miles up, and bombed Dusseldorf. It's not like these guys in Baghdad now who are on the ground.
Yeah.
And bang, bang, killing somebody on the
from
ground.
afar, yeah.
I was up there, the sky was blue, it was beautiful, and I'm dropping bombs on cities.
Yeah, and people, yeah.
Now, you have no training for that.
Yeah.
There's nothing in your background that allows you to...
It's all technical capability
allow you to
develop,
even say you're doing it.
Right, right, right. Much less a guy running a missile from 1,000 miles away. Yeah.
But then the next day you go out and you bomb Brandenburg, and the next day you go out and you bomb Cologne and Dresden
They got
and
Dresden,
so forth.
firebombed Dresden.
And you're firebombing.
Yeah.
I only saw what I did afterwards when you took pictures of these cities.
Yeah.
And I had a you know,
transformation?
a revolution.
A
in my mind. I said, how could I have been doing this? What is wrong? And then, of course, my brother, this was really the turning point in my life. My brother was on a destroyer, and you know, ferrying in Lend-Lease. He was ferrying on this destroyer.
That was dangerous.
Stuff on the Atlantic.
U-boats.
This guy knew he wouldn't make it. He knew he wouldn't make it, and he didn't. The Salerno, the invasion of Salerno, 122 ships. His was the only ship that went down.
I'll be darned.
Well, that was such a devastating blow to us, the whole family, and to me especially, because Bud, you know, Bud was better than me. I have to say it. Bud was a great guy, lovable. Everybody loved Bud, and we were going to write shows after we were going to be in show business. He was a poet, the guy, and he died. My older brother died.
Yeah, it's sad.
From then on, I said, well, what have I got to live for? I've got to stop this mess. And then what happened when I got out of the, you know, I got shot down and we went to Sweden and then we flew back to England and then the war's over in England, in the European theater, and then the Hiroshima bomb goes off. The Hiroshima bomb was like a psychic blow to everybody. One bomb wipes out a city.
There were more,
kills 76,000 people like that.
There were more people killed in the week before with firebombing of Tokyo than by the bomb.
Yeah, that's
right. But
it
did have an awakening effect because it was ushering in the nuclear.
Well, the firebombs
destroying,
destroying Tokyo with firebombs. It was because there was an inrush of oxygen, and the oxygen then fired Tokyo.
Right.
So I mean that was bad enough.
Yeah.
But one bomb destroys a city. Everybody at the time was saying, that's it, we can't afford war anymore.
Yeah, easy to say.
And then, of course, the Cold War starts between the America and the Soviet Union. I said, these guys, these diplomats, you know, they're liars, they're hypocrites. They continue the game of war. They don't know how to get out of war. I want out of this system.
Yeah.
And that's when I said, you know, the nation-state system is a war system.
Okay, you came to a very realization. Had
Absolutely.
you been, is that a political stance on your part?
It was
Socially organized.
It wasn't a
You're
political
concerned with
stance
the
so much
human
as
condition.
you know what it was?
Other than just your own life.
It was a stance of me saying who I was in this world. What was my identity? And
That's important
my only identity that I knew about, I had two identities at this point. I was in show business, making people laugh. That was my real mission. And I was a killer.
Having dropped the bomb.
And
What about
why was
what was your attitude towards questions of war and peace when you were in showbiz? Were you concerned with those questions?
No
Did
attitude
you
at
think
all.
about it? You were just rocking and rolling.
Yeah, rocking and rolling. It came along. And you know, in a war, especially Second World War, Hitler, you know, was the bad. He was the evil guy. We were the good guys.
He was a pretty evil thing, easy to hate.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we, you know, we were doing good.
Yeah, and the whole country was united patriotically.
But doing good is one thing. But bombing citizens in cities is not doing good.
I heard tell that the rate of deaths from the at the turn of the 19th to 20th century, there used to be for every 9 soldiers killed in the meadow as they fight, 1 civilian would die. And by the time we got to the end of the century, 9 civilians would die for every soldier died.
Well, World War II
Some
was
sort of a massive kind of thing where it became massive state terrorism delivered down upon civilians, women and children, and the nature of war became even more horrendous
and
than it always had been.
Not only that, Harold, but that's illegal. All the conventions going back to 1868 say that you cannot kill non-combatants.
But I noticed that it's done with great alarming regularity.
In the Second World War.
In the Second World War,
because
horrible.
Of the air.
Dresden.
And I was part of it.
Yeah.
And I said, my God, what do I do now?
Slaughterhouse 5, Mr.
You know, then I started studying about how do you get rid of war. Oh, man, I read books. Emory Reeves wrote a book called The Anatomy of Peace, which everybody watching us should read. It's still relevant. And then how did the United States get started? They eliminated the anarchy between the 13 states. And then I studied the idea of world government. Einstein said, you can't give this weapon to competitive nations. Nuclear is not a war weapon. It's indiscriminate in its destruction. A war weapon is a weapon that goes from here to a target.
It had been.
No, but it is. Well,
strategic
nuclear
bombing was really a different kind of proposition that came into war making in the later part of the 20th century.
We did saturation bombing.
That's what I meant, saturation bombing.
Bombing. Right. But it was still a target.
Right.
We had a target.
Yeah.
But when that big boy descended on Hiroshima, the target was
the whole damn city. Yeah. Yeah. Women, children,
so Einstein says
churches.
This is not a war weapon, and a lot of people were saying the same thing. And the quote, which everybody knows now, is that this has changed our way of this has changed everything except our way of thinking.
That's Mr. Einstein.
So the way of thinking, what he was really saying was we still think nationalistically. And I said, I'm not going to play this game anymore. So I discovered a very interesting law that you could get rid of your nation. You could get rid of your nationality.
Get rid of the nation-state
You could
notion
renounce. You
of
could
identity.
exercise sovereignty yourself. In other words, you were in control. This is what the first 3 words of the U.S. Constitution
You could
means.
own or be owned by a nation-state.
You can get out of it, the whole thing. You can renounce nationality itself.
And the Ninth Amendment.
And the Ninth Amendment is
Tell
another
them about
one.
the Ninth Amendment.
The Ninth Amendment was put in by Madison.
The Constitution of the United States.
Yeah,
Madison.
they wrote 8 rights, and then Hamilton says, look, you've left off the main right. And Madison says, what are you talking about? He says, well, what did we do 2 years ago? We started a government, didn't we? And Madison says, oh my gosh, political choice. We can't put political choice in the Bill of Rights because these guys in Maine are going to want their own government, and certainly the Southerners are going to want their own government. You know, we're having a problem getting this government together. So he very subtly put in the Ninth Amendment, which says the enumeration of rights in the Constitution shall not be construed to deny or disparage other rights retained by the people.
Retained by the people.
Retained by the people.
Inalienable rights. Those are the natural law rights which go back centuries.
John Locke.
That go into the person.
These mean the people are sovereign.
That's right. The sovereignty of every person, not some grand collective, but it gets down to the human level. Every human being is a sovereign above the state.
When did that come in? Yeah, go ahead.
1789.
1789.
Right, in the Bill of Rights.
The Constitution.
And it's ignored. And you'll never see the Supreme Court ever make any mention of the Ninth Amendment.
Oh, they hate it.
And it's the most important.
They do.
They always deny it.
The judicial mindset
I wrote my own writ of certiorari to the court because I came in one time with my world passport.
Yeah, we got to get to that. That's not a small matter.
Well, it's not a small matter, but when I renounced my citizenship, I had no citizenship. Well, what I did was, I'm not stateless. I said, I'm not stateless. That's what you call me. I'm exercising my sovereignty as a human being. I'm placing it, I'm verticalizing it, I'm placing it in that area above the states because there's nothing up there.
A world citizen.
And I'm putting world now in front of citizen. And I'm claiming to be a world citizen.
Because in fact you are.
What is that? Well, we're all world. You're born a world citizen, really, but you don't know it. It's the right. We're living in the 21st century. We're not living in the 18th.
That's right.
And what has happened is Bucky Fuller's pointing out, and all these, Toffler and all these guys are saying, look, the nation state itself was a response to feudalism. And what happened then? You know, the horse and buggy was the fastest means of transportation. Now, from the turn of the century, now we had radio, and we had all these technological inventions, and suddenly we have a global village, as McLuhan. We're living in a global village. We have tools now which can transmit instantaneously messages and so forth.
This is one of them, this television.
But when we think of politically, our minds do a paradigm shift of 180 degrees.
And we are in America.
And we're back in the 18th century.
We're back in the 18th century.
Politically.
We're
Americans. We're French. We're Germans. We're Afghans. We're Iraqis. But the world you can get around in 2 days. You can send a message around in a nanosecond. And we're all doing it. You turn on the television at night and you're getting world news. What's happening in Afghanistan? What's happening in Baghdad, Joe? What's happening and so forth? And immediately the guy comes in.
I think it took 3 months at the time of George III and George Washington for a letter to get from London to New York. 3 months.
Yeah. George Washington said to Alexander Hamilton, he said, look, Ben Franklin, we haven't heard from him for 3 months. Let's send him a letter. Let's send him a letter.
You type a letter now, it's in Peking in 1 second. It's right there, you know. And and this program is going to be able to be seen everywhere in the world. This program, you or your words, are going out. A big transformation. We're getting a little ahead.
Well,
but we have to let him go ahead. You want to pipe?
But I was just going to add to
he's got something to say.
That Garry is also saying that not only are you a world citizen, but you may be a citizen of New York. You may be a citizen of the state of New York. You may be a citizen of the United States. He's not saying you have to abandon these other citizenships. He's just saying that now that we're in a global village, now that there's a global society, it's important to have an institution in which you can have some justice,
and
freedom and justice at the global level.
And furthermore, it's even worse than that, or better than that. Since 1945, the global society is in danger. And if we're talking about survival,
you mean from the massive destructive capability of our technology?
We have the possibility to destroy ourselves.
Well, apparently that is the case now.
I mean, how many...
We've been here 200,000 years and we haven't had that capability. We were protected in our impetus as we gestated.
But in the cosmic sense, we're there a couple of seconds.
Starts bringing in some comprehensive
thinking. The human race is very, very, very modern compared to the universe itself.
I know, 13.7 billion years.
Carl Sagan's cosmic. Do you ever see Carl Sagan's cosmic law, cosmic year?
I'm not sure.
He takes the Big Bang and now, and he puts it into a year.
Yeah.
Well, the solar system was formed in September 17th.
Of the year, yeah.
And then water came in, and then the planets about December 3rd.
December 3rd. Yeah.
And then the dinosaur period was from December 4th to December 7th, which is 300 million years. And finally, he comes up to, in December 31st,
the last day of the year.
1143,
before midnight.
the human race came, and everything that we know in terms of this cosmic year happened in the last 15 seconds.
Yeah, the last 15, yeah. And it's increasing. And it's increasing exponentially, as you and I talk right now.
It's an awesome thought.
We live at a time of qualitative transformation that might call for some qualitative transformation in terms of our institutions and our relationship to them. That we've inherited out of a historical condition that, by the zeitgeist, has changed fundamentally.
Well, you're too intellectual for me.
No, well, I don't know. Not at all. No, it's just
he's using these big words.
Like zeitgeist. That's not a big word.
Oh, you're from academia.
Well, I'm gilded.
But the point.
That's a curse word.
Time ago.
The point I want to make is every single person who's living today is in a contract with humanity, because if it's true that humanity dies, then we all die, right? So therefore, there's a direct, all the things that you think you are, all the identities that you think you are, like nationality and religion and color and gender,
in a great big boom,
is all irrelevant to survival.
Right.
And what does that mean? It means that we have to re-identify ourselves on the global level.
I think we should all think of ourselves as world citizens.
Ta-da!
Do you think it's a good idea?
Thank you very much.
I think we should.
Gary, just yes or no on that question.
What? No.
Is world citizenship a desirable thing? Is that just? Is it fair?
Okay, we're born into the world, but there's one thing about citizenship that people don't understand. When you claim to be a world citizen, what you're really claiming, you're also claiming to be a microcosmic world government,
and responsible.
Citizenship and government go together. You can't be a citizen without government.
What do you think of the fellow Lovelock, who's got the idea of Gaia?
James Lovelock,
James
he's on our team.
He's on your team?
He's the coordinator of our world
He's got
environmental
the Gaia concept, and he sees the world as an organism.
Yeah.
The whole world is an organism, morphic, resonancy, sheldric, that it is and all of the Vedics and the people have been telling us, okay, good. That,
please read that when you get a
I
chance.
will. I have to put the glasses on. But all of the world, there are no academic disciplines in reality. There are no national disciplines in reality.
Right.
They're all constructs of ours, and the situation has changed, and we can deal with them and change them, and we can make things in a way that is in keeping with the best interests of us all.
Didn't Bucky Fuller talk about world citizenship?
Well, we all agree upon Buckminster Fuller. Of course he did.
Yeah.
And he talked about the fact that we were transcending scarcity as an ontologic reality.
And going from weaponry to livingery.
Right.
Okay, I've got here in my hand, I hold here in my hand, Mr. McCarthy, I have here a list of world citizen card.
Yeah.
And it says Mondo Civic Tech card. What is this, Gary?
It's in 7 languages. This is proof. See, we're doing the card game. The nations play the card game with us.
Right.
Like passports, visas, and so forth, identity, all this identity. Oh, well, something happened in December 10th, 1948 at the UN, and I was there in Paris. They proclaimed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
Amen. Thank you, Eleanor Roosevelt.
And please get it. You can write to the World Service Authority and get a copy of it. We have it in 37 languages. But the main thing about this declaration is that all nations have signed it. In fact, in the Charter of the United Nations, Article 56 says every nation has to observe and respect fundamental human rights. Human rights, that means us. Well, do you know the first article says all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights.
Free in dignity and rights, but they're not born
They're
right in
they're born into the world.
And what they have.
But they don't say they're born nationalistic.
No, but they're
not national citizens when they're born.
All right, some of them are born
beings.
rich and some are born poor.
No, that's another thing. He'll talk about that.
Yeah, wait, that's what he's
we'll
interested
solve
in.
the economic justice is within this framework.
We live in a somewhat truncated political democracy. You get to vote every once in a while for somebody, some group that can go in. But we definitely live in a world plutocracy.
Yeah,
both between the nations of the world and between the people within the nations of the world. There's a small group that have always ruled since the days of the emperors.
Because we allow it.
And they still do.
Yeah,
Except now it's gone to where it's the financiers.
We don't claim our rights.
Well, all right. So we need a new change.
And Harold, it's in the system. And the system, the governmental systems, the economic system, the monetary systems were not created by God.
That's right.
It was created by human beings.
That's right.
And these were created as social props. And under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, they are created, these social props like money, like tax systems, like governmental systems, like corporations, like unions, like organized religion. They're all supposed to elevate the sovereignty of the human person so that they can begin to become fully human. Now, one of the problems of war, why people go into war, why you have revolutions, is because of the separation between those who are haves and those who are have-nots.
Thank you.
Okay? And what Lewis Kelso, who I discovered in the poverty program when I was off on the wrong track, discovered in Kelso is a way in which you can lift up have-nots of the world without having to pull down the haves. It's a way of connecting up to the development process. And this is very, very important because one of the causes of war and conflict, class conflict, one of the reasons that you have the class of workers and the class of owners, and the owners are becoming, they accumulate capital because of the economic system. Money comes into being so that if you own capital, capital breeds capital for you. And so the gap keeps getting wider and wider among nation states as well as within nation states.
The rich get rich and the poor get babies.
I have to interject
he's
here
got to interject with something.
Because
little practical
there's another reason for war in my book. There's no law to prevent it.
No international law.
Sure. There's no law to prevent it.
There's no international
So between
order.
nations, you have a condition of anarchy, which perpetuates, which is the breeding ground of war.
Reinhold Niebuhr said, "Moral nation, immoral world," saying that the nation level with the level of sovereignty to which you owe obedience and so forth, and you're out on the great seas, you're on your own, pal.
So
and it's only realpolitik and the rule of the strongest.
So I come in and I say, wait a minute.
Rule of the jungle.
What is this anarchy that the nations perpetuate in order to govern us? It really doesn't exist because the human species is already a system. That's what all the cybernetics say. It's a system. I mentioned Stafford Beer.
That's also Mr. Lovelock.
I mean, we are a human. There's a human species
You know how many cells there are in a human organism?
Billions? How many?
Trillions.
You sitting down? You are.
Yeah.
So it's true. 100 trillion cells.
Oh boy.
And they're all overlaid with design.
Yeah.
And they all matter. If they
Right.
get run away, it's cancer. They all matter, and they work as a system,
Exactly.
and they all matter.
Yeah. So everybody is a system, but the human race itself.
Yeah, but
then
100
becomes
trillion, and they're all operating.
Yeah.
And so there's you got 10 billion people we're heading for in the world,
Yeah.
and so many of them can only very, very dimly appreciate or fulfill their full potential genetic given because they're in conditions where they cannot do it.
Extrapolate then that to humanity, please.
Well, I'm trying. I'm not sure if that's the right jump, but that's what Mr. Lovelock's doing.
Wait a minute. Your heart's beating, my heart's beating, every heart is beating out here at the people who are watching this.
And your hair is growing whether you want it to or not.
And they're going to bed tonight, or they're getting up in the morning, and they're going to the bathroom. We are a human species. That's why I say the law, that this idea of anarchy is false. Because we're all guided by ecological laws.
Right.
And if you want to, spiritual laws, conceptual, we all have value systems.
Right.
We have words like kindness and courage and love and understanding and reason and wisdom and
all
so forth.
All those words that our leaders ignore.
But they're conceptual words that we use all the time. And the only area where we are at fault is the political side.
And the economic theorizing,
So I
would
say
suggest.
everything else exists. The law, the biological laws exist. Your genes and my genes are practically the same, and your genes are practically the same as mine, and practically the same as a fruit fly. I don't know, I heard that somewhere.
Well,
and then biologically we're the same. We have genes, okay. And then conceptually,
and the DNA template over the whole system.
conceptually we have a value system.
Right.
So let's
the
join the two by, we know how to make laws because we've got laws up to the nation-state level, and now we have a whole body of fuzzy laws called international, and we have courts out there called the International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Court.
The International Court of Justice, the United States is not wanting to get into because they're afraid they're going to be called into the dock.
The United States
the
doesn't
superpower.
exist. You've got to get it in your mind that the United States is a fiction created 219 years ago by 55 guys, and it's obsolete. It's
white men
dysfunctional. Mr. Bush has his finger on 5,700 nuclear weapons.
On here,
you want to give your life? He says, "I'm in command. I'm the decider. I'm listening to God."
The decider, isn't that funny?
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
You're the decider. We're the deciders.
Well, okay. He's got some things he's got to address. And you have put forth the world passport. We'll get to that, but you want to.
I want to address the economic roots of conflict.
What would you rather have? Would you rather have full economic power over your own being, or would you rather have the full power to vote?
There you go.
The political power is less significant than the economic in real terms, and we live in a world of great class distinction in all political entities around the world, including the world itself. And that's the main problem.
The issue of government.
We need a new economic system, I would think.
Yes, the issue of government is an issue of power. Okay? And the founders understood this. Power follows property. And once you understand the nature of property, it gives you control. You have property in your own body.
Property is synonym for the individual, the free individual? Could it be a property?
I'm saying property is a set of relationships. Okay, it's nothing you can see. It's a set of relationships. So if I own my own body, the fruits of my body are mine, and if somebody else owns the fruits, I am their slave.
We had chattel slavery.
So that as you move through in the synergistic revolution that's taking place now, that Bucky Fuller described beautifully.
We're all tuned into the work of Buckminster Fuller
and Kelso and Lewis Kelso. The two together. Bucky showed how technology, the process is redesigning your tools to do more and more with less and less human effort.
He was a comprehensive, anticipatory design science and using good design in order to answer the problems and to take the measure of the world.
You're moving from a primitive, labor-intensive world for tens of thousands of years to in the last century or so, you are now moving into the technology revolution in which you're vastly more productive. Your capital is so much more productive than the human being in terms of its ability to produce wealth. Bucky Fuller says, all you do is eliminate all your technology, your infrastructure, your factories, your machines, and suddenly billions of people are starving to death. That tells you the productive capacity of the tools that we invented.
Which is increasing. Let me put this up. This is in support of you, right?
Right.
So hold it up. And this is Lewis Kelso's chart. And this is a thing that shows for the United States, but the trend of the United States economy is applicable to the trend in the world, which is somewhat behind. So this is a trend applicable to the human society, and this is Lewis Kelso's chart.
Yes.
We had Fuller's chart showing
which
that.
Which is similar.
But it's different. But this is, you explain it, Norman, this is 1776, Thomas Jefferson, the start of the Republic, 10%. This line under here is the input to production by something other than human labor.
Those were the tools, the productive
trees
capacity.
That were to be cut down with hatchets.
In other words, you had animals and you had very primitive tools, and then at the time of the Industrial Revolution,
you can't talk over.
Yeah, you can't talk over. So
one talks to the other.
Okay, so this is the beginning of our republic. This is coming into the modern. That the technology or something other. Oh, you want to do it? Okay, you try it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. what was occurring was that
Can they come in on it?
In a primitive hand tool economy, that all you could do was produce for a bare subsistence living for people. What's happened is, as a result of not just the industrial economy, but the high-tech, the post-industrial society, you're developing tools in which we have the capacity to produce in universal abundance.
Yeah.
We're not doing it because of our institutional structures. That's where Louis Kelso came in. He looked at the money systems. He looked at finance, and he saw that in the money systems and in finance, we were creating new tools that were going to the same people. What Kelso was saying, if people could be connected to ownership, to those tools, the fruits of ownership, the profits, instead of going to the rich to make them richer and richer, it would go to all the people in the world. You could solve the problem by connecting the people up to the process of change and to the fruits of capital.
The way things are actually being produced, which is by something other than human labor, which had been the case throughout human history.
Exactly.
Now it's something else, and those things of production, those technological systems of production other than labor, are all owned by a plutocratic class.
Yeah.
Owns that. The financing of the new capital technology is done through the earnings of capital, which the people have nothing of, and all they have is a labor relationship to production, and it's unworkable. And yet it is assumed by all of our political parties and the established
It's unsustainable,
system.
Harold.
Unsustainable.
The Social Security and Medicare is now a pay-as-you-go system. It's all coming out the backs of workers or the people who hire them. The unfunded debt, as the baby boomers come in and future generations, you can see that in Social Security alone, it's $12 trillion of unfunded liability, and another $62 trillion from Medicare, even before the prescription drug benefits. This amounts to a hidden debt of every American and every newborn of $250,000.
So we have to do something different because we're not relating people to the way things are actually being produced. You have a book. Let's let them see it, if you don't mind, because the trouble is we don't have enough time.
I know.
We need about 40 hours, okay?
Let's go.
But here's a book that they want to know about, okay? And you got a book or two you want to let the folks know about, too. So let them know about this. This is capital homesteading. Take the idea they gave people a homesteading stake in land, which was the principal means of production in the 19th century, for a couple decades, and then it closed, and it's now all owned by about 5% of the population.
And this will save Social Security. Without it will not cost the citizen. Every man, woman, and child would be able to go to their local banks and get $3,000 of interest-free credit created by the Federal Reserve System, flowing through the banks, so that when the boss needs to invest, he has to go to the people and say, please buy
and it's laid out in the book, and they're going to give you links to your website where the book is there. It's available in the details of that.
And it's available through Amazon.com and Barnes & Noble.
And you've got the CESJ, Center for Economic and Social Justice, building on Fuller and Kelso. And you only just got a chance that you issue an international passport. Why don't you let them know quickly about that? And that it's possible to get a passport by which you can travel around this world, and particularly people who are stateless can get. Yeah, you can show it. Let me hold it up. I mean, you tell me about it. You started this back, and we only got about 8 minutes left, so let's get it in quick.
Yeah, this World Passport is issued by the World Service Authority, which is the administrative agency of our government. Our government was declared in '53, September 4th, 1953, after we registered 750,000 people as world citizens.
750,000?
750,000.
You registered them?
Yeah.
As world citizens, and they were stateless often?
No, they were from all over the world.
Okay. Some of them were stateless or in positions
we have
where
no idea. We don't care.
Okay.
They registered as world citizens, so you can be stateless or not. It doesn't matter. But when they were saying, we now have a new allegiance, but we didn't figure it out that world citizenship and government go together. So we decided after 5 years that we would declare the government of world citizens,
Okay.
which allowed us then to take the Declaration of Human Rights and issue documents based upon certain articles.
And the means by which people who are interested in this, what you just said and so forth, are going to be available at the end of this program. Take your pen and pencil out. You can contact them on the internet. The
worldservice.org.
Worldservice.org is the site you can go to.
They can download the application forms for world citizenship, the world passport. I can see in the monitor here, the world passport. Yeah. The world ID card. It's all in 7 languages.
Okay, it's very good. Congratulations on having done that. The problem being, Garry Davis, is we're running right down to the end of time. The curtain's about to ring down. So we got to show them the books quick. We got a book of Garry Davis's here. We got one more book that he wants to show. This is Show and Tell here on Conversations. Now, what's this book? Quick, we only got a couple minutes.
This book is the beginning of the story and how I traveled.
Fast.
Traveled to India and back on the world passport, the first world passport. This is a very interesting book. A film is going to be made on this.
This is the one they're making the film about your life. There's a major film being built about this man's life.
And this is a manual. This is the manual for world citizenship. It tells you how to do it, how to talk about it, what the education is, and how to talk back, and everything. I wrote this because of the people who have the documents, and they wanted to know what the information was to how to use them.
Very good indeed. There's a film being made about your life, and well, it should be. It's going to be a heck of a film. Let me see one more. No, the other one. You're going to show the binary, because this is tied into the binary economics that you on Conversations will be well aware of. We talk about it all the time, Bob Ashford and Robert and Rodney Shakespeare. And this is a binary economic system that ties in and is anchored perhaps by philosophically some of the perceptions of Buckminster Fuller, who was a hero to all of us and to all good thinking people, seems to me. And it's a pleasure to have gotten some of all this in a conversation. And we thank you both very much for appearing and coming on to the program. Really good, and thank you very much for coming in. I'm sorry we ran out of time. We had to pick up the tempo, and it's terrible.
Well, that's all right. I mean, he talked too much. That's why.
I know. I used to say that once you get past the pearly gates, there'll be no deadlines. You want it to be racing, do you think?
There you go.
But I wonder if
we're trying to break the shackles of time.
Don't forget the Davis Code.
Don't forget.
You'll be happy here before you go to the pearly gates.
Well, we're getting there. I think they could run those credits now, and then let's leave the contact information up for you. You've got CESJ, that's .org, and you have World Service.
Worldservice.org.
Worldservice.org, all one word.
GarryDavis.com.
GarryDavis.com.
The American Revolutionary Party.
You forgot to mention. You forgot to mention the American Revolutionary Party. You subversive
well,
character.
That's because Garry took up all the time.
He took up all the time. Couldn't get a word in edgewise.
And then third, the Global Justice Movement.
Global Justice Movement.
.org.
Yeah,
that's in Canada.
Right. And we have a little listening website if you want to go where you find information about these men. That's Channer.tv. That's the host of this program. That's me.
Oh.
And it's Channer.tv. And I'll say once again, this is a monumental day. It won't mean anything to except me and maybe my dog, who I've been talking to about this. But it's May 10th of 2006. This is a major day. We are now slipping into the fully synergetic era, having lived 36 years within the paleo-synergetic era. And we thank you, Buckminster Fuller, enormously for your tremendous pace-setting work in the understanding of the evolution of universal consciousness, of which we are a part, and part of the transformative moment in which we find ourselves. Thank you very much for viewing, and thank you, gentlemen, for coming in. Great pleasure. So we've got about about 20 seconds left, so you can say something maybe we didn't get to or something, or whether they're going to put the graphics up. Put the graphics up with the contact information.
If they want to know the website of the film,
I think that's important.
It's www.onefilms, one word, .com. And they'll see an outline of the film and what it's all about and so forth. And we think that it's very timely that this film goes out, because it's a idea which time has come.
Well, it's a film about your life, and your life is so colorful, and it encompasses so many different things. I don't see how
Right.
it can be anything but a great
No, I think it'd be a great
because
film.
your life story is just an amazing one,
And
as I've come to know it. Yeah.
you know,
showbiz.
it's the kind of thing.
showbiz. Showbiz here on planet Earth. Yeah.
Showbiz
Go ahead,
on
Norman.
planet
Yeah.
Yeah,
Get it in, because
and what I'd like to say is, I agree that the film is very critical because it does open up the new world, and I want to talk about just that we're not talking about capitalism. We're not talking about or the greed of capitalism or the envy of socialism. We're talking about a just third way, which includes the idea that the sovereignty, and this is basic to Garry's work, it's basic.